Hey everybody, it's Jared Miller from Bigmil Motorsports. It's Tuesday night. Race night is next Saturday. So normally Tuesdays and Thursdays are kind of when I'm out working on the car. Fridays, if I need to be, that's if there's a lot of work to do. Not a ton of work. We had our first dirt race a week and a half ago. Making some changes to the car here. I'll go through that with you as well as my normal weekly maintenance stuff. So either way, I got the car here, and a couple of things. Because of, really based on some feedback I got from some of the other guys that race there, they recommended getting rid of the foam filters for on dirt and switching over to the K&N style filters. I had a set of K&N filters, so I figured I'd switch that over. I also got some outer wears. These are the pre-filters. They go over the air filter as kind of like a little light cover. I got those from VMS Motorsports up in Wisconsin. Fantastic. So I'll be switching those over. That's really no big deal. Another thing I do, which I'm probably the only person that does that, so I don't know if that makes me smart or not, but talking to some friends and doing a lot of research with smart people in the oil industry, so to speak, I've determined that the way I do my oil changes is that I run a fully synthetic oil. I run a high-grade filter, and I read numerous different research papers and reports on filters. I ended up with, I believe it's the Purolator. I'm trying to figure out. This is the filter that I run, Purolator Gold. And I run AmSoil synthetic. I don't know what it is, 10W, whatever. Anyway, what I do is I change the oil filter every race. I've done that for the last 3 years. I do go through a lot of filters, and those are premium filters, so when I find them on sale, I tend to buy a lot of them. But when you learn about oil, especially fully synthetic oil, as long as it doesn't get hot and burn, the oil itself doesn't degrade. Especially over a few races. But what does happen is crap gets in the oil and it has to be filtered out. So maybe it's overkill, but it's considering that these engines now cost $6,000 and all that kind of jazz, I'd rather spend the extra $100 a year on oil filters. So I changed the oil filter every single race. Or for every single race a night. So if I do 2 races on a weekend, like a Friday, Saturday, or Saturday, Sunday, I actually change the oil filter in between those races most of the time, just to kind of be sure. And then I change the oil itself every 5 races. Now, my friends that are in the oil industry actually tell me that I could probably go 10 or 15 races on my oil. And there are kits where I can send it out and get it checked, and I've read other people's reports where they've done that, and after 5 races it's still good, and after 10 races it might still be good, whatever. I chose 5 races. I don't know, maybe it's overkill, but I know a lot of people change their oil every 2 to 3 races. When I was running non-synthetic oil, which I wouldn't necessarily recommend, I was changing it every race, which gets pretty labor intensive and pretty expensive. So anyway, I've already changed the oil filter. Literally, I just, with my setup, I come underneath the car here, and I literally just spin off the oil filter right there, and fill up the new oil filter, and spin it up on there. Pretty straightforward. I'll check the oil once I get the car back down on level ground, just to make sure I actually didn't have any really that dripped out. But the oil filters absorb oil within them. They're a paper filter style. So either way, so I changed the oil filters. I'm going to be changing the air cleaners. Um, One other thing that I did, the folks that were helping me out with Kyle Beatty on the getting the tires cut, and mine aren't aggressively cut, and they're not camber cut. They're cut for stagger, so it's really just the left sides are cut down more than the right sides, just so you can get some stagger in there. But they recommended actually mounting the treads backwards, which I know we'd run Federals, all that kind of stuff. So we did that. When I got to the track, some of the faster guys, at least I think I can't remember the guy's name, and I apologize if you're watching this, but he came over, and I know he's a fast guy, told me that they actually tried that and it didn't work because the tread didn't have enough opportunity to sling out the mud. And he recommended that I switch my tires around so that they're going the correct tread direction. If I was smart, I probably would have gone over and looked at his car just to make sure he wasn't feeding me a line, right? Although if he knows any better, he knows that I'm probably not going to be challenging for the lead anytime soon. But so anyway, my left side tires are mounted on normal wheels, and it's a pain in the butt to go get those changed. So what I'm actually going to do is change my right rear direction, which this is my right rear. It's on a beadlock wheel. You can see there's the beadlock and the nuts. Once I figure out how to break that rear bead off, which is something that I tried for about an hour earlier today, and it didn't go so well. So I'm going to just switch the right rear tire tread direction, really just based on their recommendations. Now, I am going to go and check the faster people's tires when I go back to the track this Saturday, just to make sure that he wasn't feeding me a line, although I wouldn't expect that. They're usually pretty good people there, that pretty helpful, pretty nice folks. Anyway, the other thing that I did, I had gotten setup help from two different folks, and I was running a very light spring setup. I tried that. The car actually didn't feel too bad, other than it was really tight. I couldn't get the car to rotate in the corners. The other setup that I got, so that setup was from somebody that's definitely proven, but I hadn't actually seen them run that setup. The other setup that I got was from somebody that actually seen run that setup, and they ran really well with it. So what I've done is I've changed my rear springs to match the stiffer setup, and I'm going to make up a second set of shock collars and springs, so that when I'm at the track, I can actually switch the fronts between the soft and the heavier spring setup. And that's really just so that I can see what the difference is. I'll probably start with the heavier spring setup, and then kind of see how that goes. If the car feels good, then why mess with it, right? But if it still doesn't feel that good, I'll switch to a softer front spring setup. So that's pretty much the gist of that. Other than that, I don't think there's anything else. I'm gonna go back through all of my chassis mounting bolts, because that was our first race after we put the car together. I'm gonna put all the chassis, or go back over all the chassis mounting bolts, tighten them all, make sure that they're good, especially the trailing arm bolts, which I've had problems with in the past. And I'm gonna double check the header bolts, because I've had problems with those in the past. And other than that, just kind of go through nut and bolt a lot of stuff. I imagine because dirt's a little bit rougher, things probably jiggle loose a little bit more. So that'll probably be something I have to stay on top of better. So other than that, I think that's what I'm going to do here. I've already got the springs changed in the back. I need to change the springs in the front, lower the car, do the ride heights, and then scale it. I may check my rear squareness, just because when I've on asphalt had trouble getting the car to turn, I found that my rear end wasn't exactly as square as I thought it was. So I may check that just to make sure that I am not tricking myself here. But other than that, the car's pretty much good to go. A couple of changes. It's Tuesday night now, like I said, and I've already done the oil filter, the rear springs, started the bead lock, rotating the tire direction around. I'll come out on Thursday night and hopefully finish that up, have the car ready to go, and then that way I can veg out and maybe go to a movie Friday night. Well, I'm going to a movie Friday night anyway. But anyway, that way I don't need to all stress out about getting everything ready, and then Saturday morning just load it up and get it to go. All right? If you have any questions, just go ahead and type in the comments, and I'll do my best to answer them. All right? Thank you.